Testing, 1, 2. On behalf of BVOTE, welcome to everyone who took the time out of their busy lives to be with us here at the Chandelier this evening to support the ticket of Patty Dolan and Ralph Alon in their quest to reform a Board of Education much in need of change. A number of dignitaries in the office, in the restaurant this evening that I would like to introduce, starting out with actually the individual without whom Belleville would really be lost today in the event he lost this election. The greatest mayor in the history of this town, Raymond Kimball. His running mate, a man that was counted out. Lots of times you count a fighter out, and the fighter gets up off the canvas and surprises, particularly someone who raised nearly $250,000 and had an individual, shall we say, leave the ballot under suspicious circumstances. Deputy Mayor Kevin Kennedy. The next couple of individuals I want to name, without the support of these individuals, this ticket would not have prevailed. A monster turnout in the 2nd Ward, due in large part to Steve Rovell, Councilman Steve Rovell. Similarly, in the 4th Ward, Dr. John Natari. John was out there walking during the election. All of his people were out during the election. I think that was a little bit of a surprise to somebody on the other side, John, and I don't know why it should have been. And now we have a man who occasionally forgets to wear his jacket to council meetings because he's got so many muscles. The great councilman from the 3rd Ward, much younger than all of us, Vinnie Cosarelli. Forgive me if I don't recognize you in the audience. It's not intentional. You know, first of all, Deanna was running everything here. Deanna, Arena, Zach Pelly. The chairman of our zoning board forever, Jerry Del Gercio. You may remember this individual from Channel 11 when he was interviewed by Surprise with regard to the allegations made relating to council member Stromolo's Burke's conversation on the answering machine of Kevin Kennedy, Professor Tom Groneman, former board member Carmen Bucca, and former board member and planning board vice chairman Patty Norgarano. Another former Board of Education member, Arlene Shore, current planning board member. And my girl, chairman of the Friday Senior Citizens Group and member of the Belleville Library, the great Florence Pental. See you later, ladies. You know, putting together an event like this, as Deanna did, of course she had help. Unfortunately, this guy is a Dallas Cowboys fan, but he is quarterbacking this team for us this year as he did in the last couple weeks of the general election. Nick D'Angelo. Where are you, Nick? I want to point out that with the exception of 1 or 2 members, the governing body of this town is completely behind this ticket. We went through a very, very difficult election process in May. There were court battles to fight. There were money-raising battles to fight, and it looks like it's going to be this way this time. Don't underestimate them. I trust you; they'll be there on election day. There's a guy in this room. I didn't know him. I've known him for less than a year, but who commands tremendous respect from not only the governing body, myself personally, but I think from everybody in this room, because it's one thing to take a hit and you're anonymous about it, or for the sake of your family, maybe you go away. It's another thing after you take the hit to speak out about it, to speak out about an injustice. And I've never really seen a man do it quite in the fashion that this man did it. And this is just another example of what a disgrace this current Board of Education is, because we think they spent more than $200,000 to do something wrong to this man. The president of the Belleville Teachers Association, Michael Mignon. Where are you, Mike? I have to say, too, that they got so low that they were even dragging family members of yours down also. So with that, can we have a shout out for Mike's wife, Sue, that's here tonight? This is an unusual, shameless, unblushing group that is running that Board of Education now. And it really goes back to early in 2013, where there was some kind of a survey that was apparently deemed to be necessary to improve security at the school. So under those auspices, a company that was not yet formed, that is essentially run by an individual who had a criminal record and indeed served some time, was given the opportunity to come into the school system, assess its needs, and lo and behold, there was an RFP put out, and you had to answer it within 10 or 12 days, and they got the job. So, you know, I guess they played within the rules, if that's the way you think the rules should be bent. At that particular time, the school budget was voted down by the voters in this town. And the Board of Education had a statutory obligation beginning around the second week of April to share their expenses, their outlays, and their budget with the governing body, who consistently, year after year after year, worked with the board. Well, guess what was not in that budget? Clarity, of course. Clarity was not included in that budget. So Dr. Natari, Mayor Kimball, Deputy Mayor Kennedy, Councilman Ravel, Councilman Cosarelli had no opportunity to try to help the board, to work things along. It didn't happen that way. These are facts. These are not my opinions. These are not my opinions. We head into a voting cycle, and the $5 million deficit, can you imagine putting a little town like Belleville $5 million in debt in 1 year? It takes a lot of work to do, but the way they did it was not only with clarity, it was with giving jobs to people who were either underqualified or, you know, who knew somebody in the system, and paying them tremendously inflated salaries, while simultaneously taking guys like Mike Mignon out of the classroom, demoting people, intimidating people, moving people around. And if you don't think that this is not going to be done again, if Ralph and Patty don't win, you're crazy. So if it matters to you, and I'm talking primarily to people that live in the town, the value of your houses probably went down 10% after the state monitor came in. Nobody wants to move into a town where the schools are under a state monitor. If you look at the other towns that have state monitors, Newark, Camden, I think you'll find this concept to be true. And certainly we think that Tom Egan is doing basically the best he can under very, very difficult circumstances, and we hope that he stays. But as you have seen, very recently, he is still being confronted by the sinister effect of this company, who had the boldness to shut down schools in the Belleville school system. Can you believe that? Can you believe that a company charged with and pretending to care about security did this to the teachers and the kids and the parents? Have you ever heard of such a thing? If you think they've gone to sleep, you're out of your mind. This stuff is not easy. You have to have a good organization. You have to make your phone calls. You have to talk to your neighbors and friends over and over again and get them out to vote on election day. I go back again. I don't know what would have happened to the town if Kennedy and Kimball lost. I do know in whose hands it would have been, and that's not necessarily a good thing, because I think the plan all along was to run this tab up and then to find a way to pay for it a little bit down the line. I think as the facts are uncovered by us, let's say that, by us I mean by you in the room, maybe by the governing body, you're going to find that to be true. But in any event, whether or not it's true, it's just a shame what has happened in the school system here. To me, the most amazing thing, there's a few of us, I think, in the room that remember a TV program, Hogan's Heroes. Yes. There was a character, Sergeant Schultz. And when Sergeant Schultz saw something that he shouldn't have seen or didn't want to remember, he had a famous saying, "I know nothing." When you watch these people at board meetings over and over and over again, it's as if this didn't happen. It's as if they didn't know how it happened. They have no idea how this $5 million deficit happened. It's like they were, instead of being the architects of this, it's like they were witnesses who got buffaloed by somebody. So you got to stand up and fight back a little bit. And quite frankly, this is America. It's democracy. If they get more votes, they win. It continues. If we get votes out for Patty Dolan and Ralph, it's going to stop. That's all I have to say. Unless Mayor Kimball wants to say anything more. But I think right now I do want to introduce Mayor Kimball. Ray, you want to come up? You know, Mayor Kimball's a great singer. He thinks Four Seasons.
I promise I won't talk as long as Tom, but as he said already, 6 months ago, we had a very difficult election. We beat them, and we're going to beat them again. As mayor, I do get blamed for everything, so I get blamed for the problems of the board, and I know that I try to pass them back, but they don't want to, the residents don't want to accept it. But I am tired of the teachers being intimidated and harassed, the children's not having the books or the materials to learn. So it's a must. It's a must that we get people out to vote for Ralph and Patty. We're going to take these 2 seats this month, and if we don't get additional support on the board, then we'll take 2 seats the next year. So let's get everybody out. One other thing, this election is very quiet, and I know firsthand that this is the kind of election that certain individual wants. You don't want anybody to know that there's an election coming up, and then they get their people out. So what we have to do is make sure that it's known that there's an election and get all our voters out. So work hard like we did, and let's get out there and support these individuals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kimball. Next up will be, I guess it's 3 times councilman in the 2nd Ward, whose wife happens to be a fabulous principal in the school system. School 10 regularly scores at the very top of all Belleville schools. Of course, that didn't prevent these people from transferring her to the central office around December or January last year. So say hello to my fellow Rutgers alum, Steve Rovell.
Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
I really didn't intend to talk tonight, but Tom reminded me of some things. My father was always saddened by what happened at Pearl Harbor, and I know he would have been really saddened about what happened in 9/11 and what's happening to this country right now. And he would always say to me, you let your guard down. When they stole my car out of my driveway, you let your guard down. I want you to understand something, and you need to send a message back to all the teachers. Don't let your guard down. This happened in 2012. And George and I were talking about George Pedalino, when they went after the firemen and the policemen and wanted, you know, pink slipped them, harassed them, threatened them, made promises. What they did to Mike is unconscionable to me. It should never happen to any teacher. What they did to 4,600 students, in my eyes, is intellectual rape. You know, we talk about all this stuff, and here you have 4,600 students that aren't getting an education. They're not going to get an education for another couple of years because we're still going to try to catch up with this. $5 million in a hole, and if you didn't catch it last night, because I told Sue I didn't want to even hear about what happened on TV last night, but you got to see what the whole game was. They were going to ask other people to pay for this. Well, they did. The Township of Belleville is going to pay $5 million over the next 10 years to make this up. So don't fall asleep. Don't let your guard down, because these guys are just waiting for you to do that. And you need to send that message back to the teachers that aren't here tonight. Somebody needs to communicate to them that if we do not stay active, if we do not get the voters out, if we do not take that Board of Ed back, this is going to happen again. And you know, you got to be thankful for Mike Mignon, because there's no better fighter that I've met. You got to be thankful for Deanna, because let me tell you something. She stood up in a time when it wasn't very popular to stand up, was it? And I appreciate my wife, I appreciate Ray and the council, because they've all been behind you, whether you understand it or not, or haven't seen it. And I want to thank Lee, too, for Nutley Watch, because there's a game going on here that you guys don't see. I want you to make sure that the teachers that weren't here tonight understand they missed an opportunity to take their town back. But you guys make a difference. And I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Councilman, thank you. You know, on the governing body, it's been so long since there has not been an election that John Natari was in. I can't even remember. I think 6, 7, 8 times in a row that he's run. A former Board of Education member, by the way. And he's also an educator. He teaches in the Clifton school system, and he's an adjunct professor at Montclair State. And he's very in tune with these issues that were confronting our teachers. The unprecedented issues that brought 1,000 of their colleagues. How this didn't get covered in the Ledger or on television, I'll never know. But 1,000 teachers coming here to protest the intimidation and harassment. You know, all of us that have children, we thank God every day for our teachers, for our cops, our firemen, but the teachers are the ones that have our kids every single day. Come up and say a few words. Dr. John Natari.
I'm very honored to be here tonight and to speak in front of a room of mostly teachers. I served on the Belleville Board of Education when it was a good board for 11 years, and I was president of the board for 2 years. And even though we had our disagreements, we worked together. And the teachers worked with us, not for us. I stand before you tonight. I stand before you tonight in front of 2 former teachers of mine, Dennis Solano and Bill Hollis. It shows you how young I am. But I am what I am today, if I am anything today, because of men like Bill and a man like Dennis. Dennis, I think I failed your class too. Actually, I came from Holy Family School, and when I went to, this is true, when I went to the Belleville Junior High at the time, and I went to Holy Family, it was very hard for me to make that adjustment. because of teachers like Bill and because of teachers like Dennis, who really cared, and I know all of you in this room are of the same caliber. I am a very low-key guy, very laid back, but I am not afraid, and I have never been afraid of bullies. I will stand up to bullies, and you people have been bullied, and that is why I am supporting Ralph Vallon and Patty Dolan. The bullying must stop. We have spent, all of us in this room, most of us in this room, we have spent the month of September agonizing over SGOs. Very, very hard thing to do. I just finished mine. The Charlotte Danielson evaluations, where all of us had to be taught again how to teach a certain way. So if we have to go through this rigorous training, who is this Board of Education? Who are they to sit there like kings and queens? This is criminal and this is wrong. And this is going to stop. Ralph and I have always had an in and out type of relationship where we'd support him, and then because of politics I couldn't support him, and I would support him and I couldn't support him. But the one time that I did support Ralph, he came in #1 at Pewdsmith Church. And I promise you, and Pat, that you will come in #1 in the 4th Ward. You see, again, I told you I'm a low-key guy. What I have in my ward, and it's my secret, I have captains. I have a captain of just about every block. And I saw what was going on in this May election. The intimidation, the bullying, and I saw what was going to happen to this town. So I called my captains. Because you know what, I'm a little tired now. I've won 7 elections, I've been doing this for 23 years. I'm tired of going out walking. So I called my captains. My captains went out. They went out because I knew exactly where they were. And they wanted to know why a certain sign was on a lawn, because John Natale doesn't want this. Oh, John doesn't want this? They would say, poop, that sign would come up off. My captains will be out again. And I haven't walked in a while because I am tired. But next Saturday, I'm going back walking with Ralph Vallon, Patty Dolan, and John Kelly Jr. And we're going to walk. And I'm going to be tired. But we're going to win this thing. And the bullying is going to stop. And the Belleville school systems will come back. You see, right now, when I go to work, and I'm a teacher, when I go to work and at my lunch table, I tell them what's going on in Belleville. They think that I'm making up stories. They do. So, you know, I said, you know what? They said to me, John, you should be a writer. So I said, you know what? Maybe I should write this. I'll be, you know, make some money here. So I decided I'm going to write about this. It's a true story. And I was going to write a comedy about Belleville schools. It ended up being a Greek tragedy. I mean, really sad what is going on in this town. But we're going to win this. And our students are going to have the type of education that I had with a Bill Hollis and with a Dennis Villano. I served, the 11 years that I served with good board members. One of the best board members I ever served with was Willie Villano. And when I was the president of the board for the 2 years, and again, I'm a laid-back guy, Willie had the boxing gloves on all the time. He was my vice president. Willie made me the statesman, and he did all the fighting for me. He made himself, and he said, John, that's my job, to make myself look like the bad guy for you, John. But Willie was a great board member. I served a year with Arlene. Arlene was a very good board member. Patty and I never served together, but Patty's heart was always in the right direction, and Patty knows the Belleville schools. And my dear friend, the late Lois Savidio, always spoke very highly of you as a board member. And even Carmen Bucco, I don't know if he's here, if he left, the short time that Carmen served, his heart was in the right direction. And this is what we need. We don't need egos up there. I remember one night in private session, everybody was fighting and yelling and everything, and I looked at the entire board and I said to them, you know what you are? You're one step above the PTA, that's all you are. So stop the egos. And this is what we need. We need boards to work with you. You are part of the process. So again, don't take this for granted, because the town, the city that I teach in, we've had the November board election for the last 4 or 5 years. And because it's a general election in November, the top vote getter always pulls in about 10,000 votes, because it's a different type of an election. So don't take this for granted. They're out there working. So let's do our job. You want to walk with us next week? You're more than welcome to walk with us. Thank you, and I thank all of you very, very much for what you did.
Thank you very much. As I'm sitting, listening to a real Board of Education president, a person who took the name trustee, which is what they are, to heart, I couldn't help but wonder that with this impending disaster of communications in the phone systems in the school about to occur, this did not happen serendipitously. It didn't come out of the blue. And when Trustee Rivera, Trustee Zingari, former Trustee Longo, Trustee Torres, who am I forgetting? Which one or the other? Rivera? Well, the 5 of them, let's just put it that way. Don't you think that when this communication system was about to cave in, that one of them might have had the decency to let the monitor know that? To say, look, we have a dispute with this contract, and we want to get paid our $2 million plus $20,000 a month, if it's not too much money. But there's going to be a communication problem here that we'd like to pass off to a successor. Let's, in the interests of the kids and parents and the teachers, do this the right way. Do you think that's how it happened? No, that's not how it happened. This crashed intentionally. They knew it was going to crash. They wanted it to crash, and it has crashed. So, we'll just leave you with that thought. Just bear with me for 1 second. I want to say hello to my sister-in-law, who happens to work with Patty Dolan, who was kind enough to come here from the upper galaxy of the Connell Foley law firm, where she's one of the top 5 or 6 partners, Kate Murphy. I'm going to turn it over now, the rest of the program, to Deanna, Arena, Jacopelli.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes, I have added a few more syllables to my name now that I'm married. The kids are not used to it yet, but we had to acknowledge that. Good God. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here tonight. We are so honored to have the mayor and the town officials come and show their support to 2 phenomenal candidates. And I would like to talk a little bit about how teachers wound up getting political. But first, I would just like to recognize a few people. Mr. Michael Mignon. I would like to recognize the committee members of BVOTE who, when I asked them to join a political committee during a time where you were transferred for sneezing, it took a lot of courage and guts for them to agree to do so. And they're great friends and great teachers, and I just would like to thank them. And that's Bill Lindsay, our Richard Simon. Michelle Robeson. Kristen Segara. Amanda Pepe. A great teacher and a great mom, Stephanie Arena. Jennifer Alvarez. And Celia Nakashin. I would also like to thank someone, and I think it's, although it's the wrong town, I think it's appropriate that the site is called The Watch, because he does have people watching. And this has really become the way that where people go to get their information about what's going on, like they never have before. And that is the Mr. Nutley Watch, Lee Dory. Over there. Thank you, sir. I would also like to thank the coalition members that I see came tonight for always standing up for us at the board meetings. And we really appreciate all you do. And all of the citizens that came out tonight. Thank you so much. Also, before I begin, thank you. This is very new to me, this whole political thing. And Mr. Nick D'Angelo has been helping me out with, you know, the nuts and bolts of politics, especially Belleville politics, which I think is probably different from anywhere else in the world. So, thank you, Nick D'Angelo. Mahatma Gandhi once said, anyone who says that they are not interested in politics is like a drowning man who insists he's not interested in water. I found this quote to be appropriate when I was trying to think of a way to explain how teachers decided to form a political action committee. The truth is, getting involved with politics was not a choice for the teachers. It was a necessity. And drowning is an accurate description for the current status of the Belleville School District. Though many of you have heard about the deplorable conditions, it is hard to express just how much they have robbed from our children. Due to the choices of this board, choices like spending $2 million on a surveillance system where students that lack basic necessities, we really are at the point of almost being ruined. Many of our computers are not functional, the ones that are antiquated. However, this board thought that surveillance was the most important piece of technology to allocate money towards. Investing in a system that protects no one and creates a stifling air of oppression was more important than investing in our children's future. That speaks volumes about the priorities of this board. Due to this decision and multiple other horrible decisions, giving jobs to people unqualified, making up jobs. How many times have you heard of floating position? There's a lot of floaters floating around Belleville. It was horrible as a teacher to watch what was happening to our schools. And we knew we could not remain idle and allow this injustice to continue. As you know, our president, Michael Mignon, spoke up on behalf of the teachers and was promptly suspended on bogus tenure charges. It was clear at this point that the superintendent and the board would stop at nothing to silence anyone who spoke up and against what they were doing. But we knew we could not and would not allow ourselves to remain silent. We made a decision at that point that we would raise our voices until they heard us and until our children have the education that they deserve. This was the point that we formed our political action committee. Belleville's Voice of Teachers in Education was created because we have a moral obligation to protect this town's most precious resource, our children. And the only way that we could do this is if we found quality, ethical candidates and did everything in our power to get them elected. Selecting our candidates was a huge responsibility and not one that we took lightly. We knew we needed to find people that had the courage to stand up against corruption and fight for what is right for our citizens and our students. After a rigorous screening of all of the candidates running, our choice was clear. Patricia Dolan and Ralph Alon have the intelligence, integrity, and courage it will take to drive this district towards the reform that it so desperately needs. They will not be afraid to ask questions, and they will hold people accountable for their actions and their inactions. When they are elected, they will advocate for Belleville's citizens and students and oppose reckless spending, staff intimidation, and corruption on all levels. I have to admit there has been a lot of times in the last 2 years where it was hard not to feel hopeless. When you are faced with daily corruption and every day there's another crazy story on the news, in the newspapers, you just can't imagine. Nothing surprises me anymore. You wonder, how can we ever change this? How can anyone ever change such a huge, intimidating wall of people who are so corrupt? I asked myself that question several times. But tonight, I see the answer right in this room. I look around at all of you, the politicians in this town, the citizens, and the educators who cared enough to come out tonight and show your support. And instead of hopelessness, I am overwhelmed with a sense of gratitude and hope. We will win this election. We will take Belleville back into the wonderful place that it used to be, where people want to live, where people want to work. With Patty and Ralph, we together will make this town better. Thank you. So, without further ado, we will let our candidates speak to you and tell you a little bit about themselves. And just before I leave, I truly, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank all of you who came. This means so much to us. The teachers who, at times, just feel like it's going to be hard to go on. Seeing this tonight really does give us that confidence that we know we have so many people behind us. So thank you once again. And now, I would like to call to the podium Patricia Dolan.
The first thing I want to say is everybody stole my speech. I swear, at 10:30 last night, I was sitting on the couch, my hair full of dye, writing my speech. Everybody stole it. Okay, my name is Patty Dolan, and as you all know, I am running for the Board of Ed. My running mate is Ralph Alon, and we are both very excited to be running together because we both want what is best for our school district and town. I have been a Belleville resident since 1963. I am the proud parent of Katie Dolan, a beautiful 2013 graduate of Belleville High School who is pursuing her career in education. I have been a legal assistant with the law firm of Connell Foley for the past 29 years. I would like to thank my daughter for supporting me during this election. I would also like to thank my family and friends for all the support I have received from them and for coming out tonight. As my boss and also my friend, Kate Murphy, who is here tonight, said, I will have 2 jobs when elected, and she has full confidence that I will succeed as a Board of Ed trustee, just as I have in my position in her law firm, and has full confidence that neither position will interfere with the other, and that the students, staff, and community of Belleville will benefit from my work ethic and dedication with everything I do. I decided to run for the board so that the students, educators, and citizens have a voice through me. I was a fierce advocate for my daughter during her 13 years in the school system. I now want to advocate for every child, educator, and staff member in our district, along with the residents of Belleville. As a single mom, a homeowner of a 2-family house, and with a single income, I have a long history of balancing a budget. My own, but it's a budget. Our children need supplies, updated books, and instructional technology in order to achieve the best education possible. Without these necessities, our teachers will not be able to teach to the best of their ability. I feel that a positive energy from an educator is essential in order for students to learn. This district has failed to support our educators and staff. As a result, they feel intimidated by the BOE and are afraid of losing their jobs. That needs to stop at all levels. No one should be afraid of losing their job unless they are not working for the betterment of the district. We need to bring spending under control and redirect our funds to where they belong, to the children, for the necessities they need for a better education. Without having the opportunity of viewing the budget line for line, I cannot say where it should be appropriated. But what I can tell you and can promise you is if elected, I will fight against needless overspending. The money spent on this so-called surveillance system that is now an anchor around our necks could have gone to new books and educational technology. We don't need cameras and microphones in the classroom. In my opinion, that is an invasion of not only the teachers, but the kids' privacy. Children spend more waking hours in the classroom with their teachers. If they are upset about something going on in school or at home, the one person they may talk to is their teacher, guidance counselor, or social worker. But with the microphones and cameras in the classroom, these kids won't open up. I know my daughter did a lot of talking to her teachers when something was bothering her. But I can tell you, Mr. Silvera, if there were cameras and microphones, she would not have talked to the people she most trusted. If more time had been spent on researching different security systems, we could have found a security system that would have worked better than what we have for far less than $2 million. Our security system will not prevent someone from coming into the schools. All it will do is record the incident to be played back later and possibly assist in locating the assailant. I would much rather not have someone in the school that they have to find. That is a safe environment. Changes will not happen overnight. It will be a process that will take time. The one thing I can promise is that you will not be disappointed when myself and Ralph Vallon are elected to serve the Board of Education. So remember, Election Day is just 25 days away, November 4th. Vote 2H and 4H for Patricia Dolan and Ralph Vallon. In closing, I would like to thank all the teachers and citizens of Belleville who have worked so hard on this campaign, whether it be walking, talking, or working the polls on the 4th. I would like to thank Deanna Arena. I'm sorry, I didn't know your last name. Jack. Steve Ravel, James Kundari, Felipe, who unfortunately could not make it tonight, and Ralph for all of their guidance. I would especially like to thank my campaign manager, Nick D'Angelo, for assisting me in acquiring information to move forward in this campaign. Without him, I would have been taking baby steps. Thank you.
I wanted to mention, I actually wanted to say this before I call Ralph up. On Sunday, November 2nd, we are going to have a rally at the Knights of Columbus in Belleville. This is a free event, and all are welcome, so please join us on that date. We will also be at the Chandelier on Election Day when the polls close. So, please join us for those two events. Now, you may have heard his name before. You may have seen him at a board meeting or two. Ralph spoke out before speaking out was popular. And we appreciate him. We appreciate him for being